Hey everyone, Ken here from Pop Culture Junkies. Let's talk about some mistakes that have been coming out of CGC and CBCS recently. Alright, so we've seen multiple issues come out of CGC and CBCS recently. They're all pretty interesting. I think first I want to talk about a few things that come along with increased capacity, because both CBCS and CGC are getting a record number of orders in right now. What that means is when you increase that operation increases in size, you're going to increase the amount of acceptable errors. People don't like to talk about acceptable errors, but they exist. There's a certain percentage of your business where you have to accept that there's going to be malfunctions, errors, poor product, returns, etc. So what's an acceptable portion for your collectible? You probably feel like it's 0. The truth though is there is an acceptable number that CGC has to operate within. They want to rectify any mistakes they can, but there's a certain number of those mistakes that are going to come through. It's very important to make sure that you're careful to weed out your recency bias, what happened to you most recently or what you saw most recently, your personal bias, what happened to you, and your proximity bias, what happened closest to you. A lot of times we think because we see something in a forum or a post somewhere that it's happening everywhere. That's entirely not the case. In fact, typically people who are complaining are the most likely to go online and post about it. If you think about the last few restaurants you ate at, you probably didn't go leave reviews for the ones that were great. You probably had something to say about the ones who weren't. And even if it wasn't leaving a review, you probably remembered it when someone asked you about it. That's just the way our brain works. When it happens to us, it's very important to us. And when it doesn't disrupt our day, we don't tend to remember as much about it. So just be careful of those biases as we kind of discuss these things and go through. But I really want to jump into the content. Let's go. So first, let's talk about some acceptable errors, or things I would consider acceptable. You have your swapped labels or label typos. Those are manual entry errors. That's something that someone doing some sort of manual entry screwed up. They hit the wrong key. Something happened. I don't think in the entire grading process that 3 people or multiple people are checking the label. I think once that label's done, it's pretty much finalized and it just gets slapped in the case. When they're doing multiple books in your order, I don't know how they actually do it, but I'm assuming they do them all together, and that's how those labels get swapped, because I've never seen one someone posted from someone else's order. It's always labels swapped within a single order. And so I think the books come with the cases and someone's putting the labels in and they accidentally put it in the wrong slot. What's the acceptable percentage of that? That's something you have to ask yourself. I don't know those numbers for CGC. You have to imagine though, if they're doing 100,000 books per month, that 6 mislabels are acceptable, and it's probably an even higher percentage, to be honest with you. But you're likely to see a whole lot of those people upset about it, posting on Facebook. The posts go viral, they get shared everywhere, and it makes it seem like a much bigger issue than it is at times. And I could say the same thing about the CBCS issues. I'm not just trying to excuse CBC or CGC. So those are some of those kind of acceptable manual entry, manual labor kind of errors that can happen. That happens when you have people working on something, and when you scale the project, those errors are going to happen. What you don't want to see is the percentage of errors overall increase. You want to see the percentage stay in line with where it was. So if you had 100 products and you had a 3% failure rate and you were okay with that, when you go up to 1,000, you still want to see a 3% of that 1,000 failure rate. You don't want to see that percentage creeping up. That's what you don't want to have happen. The total number is going to go up, but you want it to stay in line with the growth, or potentially go down if you make some process improvements. Probably one of the bigger ones to come out more recently was CBCS verifying the signature on this Ultimate Fallout 4. This is a pretty big error to me. I mean, this is a YouTuber who took an hour or two to perfect this signature. I don't think he's actually a professional forger, and I don't think he should be able to get something past someone who's professionally verifying signatures. So the fact that he was able to get this through and get it verified by them is pretty huge. It calls into question pretty much every verified signature they put out. It's a reason I will not buy one of their verified signatures. I will buy a signature series, potentially. It's one of the reasons I understand why CGC does it the way they do, where they have to see the signature, but you absolutely avoid getting burned like this. To a less scrupulous person, this book would have went right onto eBay or somewhere else, and it would have gotten sold and put out in the general public, and you would never know about it. And who knows how many of those are out there right now. This is really an unacceptable. How this slid through 3 graders, I don't know. What their verification process is, I don't know. What the software they use is, I don't know. Whatever it is though, it's unacceptable for this to make it out and be sent out to the public this way. So the next one, this is also a CBCS book. This book was sent in for signature verification. He made up this signature of someone named J-Dog, as you can see here. And then he actually colored the character in green on the cover of the book. This book is graded as being sent to him right now. It's in their records as a 9.8 verified signature series book. I have no words for how this could have gotten through. I don't know how this wasn't rejected and sent back. I don't know if they're considering coloring on the cover by a random person, a remark. Whatever it is, again, pretty unacceptable for this to make it through a professional grading service. If multiple people saw this book and put this out. Supposedly these people were trained by the best person to ever work at CGC, and this is what they're doing and what they're grading and what they're allowing to make out of the company. Highly unacceptable. Yet again, another reason I'm very skeptical of their signature series books. I haven't actually seen the book in the person's hand. I have seen their scanned CBCS record that you can see here, and waiting to see it in person with them, waiting to see more pictures on it. But again, don't know how this made it through the company, don't know how it made it through multiple graders, have no idea how they put this label on it and didn't consider this just a completely damaged piece of garbage. FYI, he sent this in as a joke because the book was already damaged, if I understand correctly, and was expecting it entirely to get rejected or something and not to be given a 9.8 signature verified label. So last but not least, this is probably the biggest one. CGC recently graded this book. This is an Ultimate Fallout facsimile edition that came out this year. Marvel, they put this book out. It looks very similar to the original edition. There are some key differences for people who know to look for them. The barcode's different. Some issues around the numbering are different. But overall, even the ads inside are from the original era. They're the same ads that appeared in the original book. I don't know why Marvel did this. It's just going to cause them years and years of confusion down the road. I'm not sure why they had this idea, but the more important thing is 3 people. CGC's process is supposedly 3 people grade a comic book. They take a look at your book and they take the average grades for that book. None of those people caught that this was a facsimile edition book. It went through 3 people's hands. None of them caught that this was a facsimile edition. The actual 9.8 of this book goes for hundreds, if not thousands of dollars at times. The facsimile edition is barely worth cover price right now. To the unscrupulous person, again, putting this out there, someone would purchase this thinking it was a legitimate book. If someone was buying this for a loved one or something and thought that they could trust a CGC graded comic book, they entirely can't. And again, they've done this with one. Who knows how many more they did? Did they just get a sudden burst of these in the beginning after this book came out and they graded multiples? And there's multiples in circulation? If so, everyone looking at Ultimate Fallout, you should be very, very careful at what you're looking at. I will say CGC did go and again correct this in their database. That's not helpful for the person looking at scans on eBay though. It's really unfortunate. I do think all of these things are a sign or a symptom of their increased capacity that they're undergoing. They're both companies hiring more people, dealing with more product than they've ever dealt with before, and they're trying to get these books graded and out there. You're gonna see some sort of errors. These are the unacceptable ones, I would say. You shouldn't have this facsimile edition make it through 3 people grading it. You shouldn't have fake signatures getting verified, and you certainly shouldn't have fake people coloring on a comic book getting a signature series edition. So all things that have happened recently, again, I think it's due to the increased capacity and what they have going on. We'll have to see what happens in the future. If you guys like this content, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, remember to hit like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.